Hey, I'm Dan, and this is Dan's Planes. What do we have here, Princess? That's right. We've got the Sundowner 50. So, this was, I think, my second or third Sundowner. I originally had a Sundowner with a Dub Jet engine on it, and I could not for the life of me get that engine dialed in, and it constantly would dead stick after about one circuit, no, about one and a half circuits, because I would always be above the trees. It was about like clockwork. I kept thinking it was a heating issue, but I'd even fly the thing with the cowling off, and it didn't matter. I just had constant problems. So I put one into the trees. If you've seen my field, you see that it's not very deep. And on the deepest part of it, that's where trees are. And on the right side, that's where trees are. So I put one or two into the trees before I said, forget that. I'm going to try to go electric. And on RC groups, there's a thread, which is old now, but it's called something like Fast Sundowner Setups. And I copied one of the more recent posts where somebody GPSed themselves at 158 point something miles per hour. And I copied the person's setup. I've got a Scorpion helicopter engine in here. It's a 4035 something, I can't remember now. And what, you know? Okay, it probably is. So I went to fly this thing, and I'm planning on flying it with two 4S in series, so 8S, which makes this thing pretty heavy. I've got, excuse me, I've got telemetry in this. This is my telemetry module. And I went to just taxi it, and the P factor and the torque was pretty enormous, and it immediately pulled left, and it very quickly had the tail come up off the ground. Well, once that happened, you've got a very skinny rudder here. So when you're not up to speed for that rudder to really take effect, but you don't have the tail wheel steering anymore, you can't control it. So it just went left and kept going left and went into a fence post and banged up the leading edge of one of my wings. So I didn't get around to fixing it. Then I bought another Sundowner. That would be the one I've already posted on YouTube. That's the one that has the, I think it's a 61 FX in it, OS 61 FX, I think. So that one I flew, and I heard a change in the sound. I knew that meant that the muffler was coming loose. And in my hubris and arrogance, I thought, oh, I'm just going to fly it until it dead sticks. And then when it does, then I'll land it, no big deal. Well, of course, it landed and it died in the worst spot where I wasn't able to bring it to level cut grass. And instead, it ended up going down just over a hill that I couldn't see it. I was trying to flare as much as I could and couldn't quite get it. So it broke off the firewall and bent my landing gear. So now I've got that to fix. But the wings were okay. So if I take the wings from that, and then I take the fuselage from this one I've had sitting around, then I can fly this fast one. So that's what the plans are. So I've put in a couple reinforcements here to be able to thicken up where I put pressure on it to wrap Velcro around the battery. And I've made a series XT90, and I put an XT90 on it because all this was Dean's back when I was doing Dean's. or 4S. I have to go through this to refresh myself on all of it. Now, I was flying it with my high-tech Aurora 9 radio with a Optima 7 receiver, and then, like I said, telemetry. So for telemetry, I was doing amps and RPM and heat, and I thought I might have done voltage, but maybe not, because I was also data logging with this Phoenix, with the Castle Creations. I think it's a Phoenix Ice. I can't remember the size of it. I'm gonna have to look at that. So I was doing data logging, so I was able to dump that down. So I had a lot of data coming at me, and I can't remember how I did all that. And the telemetry should be pretty easy. That just works when you plug in the module. The downside of this is my Radio Master for high tech will not do telemetry. So this one airplane I may have to keep on my high tech, which is a bummer. I'd like to get everything to the Radio Master, but we do what we can do. So this is pretty sweet. I mean, I've got a brand new untouched cowl that I'm not going to have to cut into. And after the incident where I flew it into the fence post because I had no rudder authority, I thought, well, maybe I'll get a gyro and put that in there. Some guys do that with tail draggers like warbirds. So maybe that would be a way to go. So I bought that. I had bought lights for the front of the wings, because I don't know if you have seen Sundowner wings, but they are really skinny and they're white and they disappear really quickly when it's coming at you. And you know, when you're coming around for a high-speed pass and it's coming at you, that's not the time that you want to lose perspective of where it is and lose orientation. So I had lights on my Sundowner 36, but they weren't very bright at all. And I cannot remember if they were the same brand as these Amazon Super Night LEDs. I also am not crazy about putting lights on the front of the wings, because that's going to disturb the airflow on something that I'm trying to get as fast as I possibly can. Now, I've also heard that the airframe breaks up when you start hitting 160. And the person I talked to, who's 158 mile per hour setup I copied, he said the airframes start to break up around 160, which I've already seen on my OS 61. My horizontal stab broke on the front and the rear, and I don't know of ways to get around that yet. What I did is I used metal. I think on the rear I used a metal that went across and then went curved along the body, and I epoxied it in. But that epoxy broke off the body after the first flight. So, you know, there's always carbon fiber, but I don't think I could, precision drill this out to then slip in some carbon fiber. I don't know, but maybe I can. But I'd be interested to hear in the comments what you guys' thoughts are for how I could reinforce that, because that's definitely going to be a weak point. But now I'm getting my hands back on it again. Hopefully, if I don't break more planes the next time I'm flying, I could actually make some progress on this instead of fixing the same ones I keep fixing. So cross your fingers. Well, I stuffed the batteries in here. I can't remember if this one goes further forward or not. It's a challenge getting to the series plug that I need to plug into because these battery leads aren't very long and it's stuffed in there pretty good. I think I can about get it, but the battery will have to stay back here. But after I put the cowl on, I noticed, look at that, the shaft barely comes out of the cowl. And I for sure 100% absolutely had the original orange Sundowner spinner on there with a prop and ran it up. So I can't for the life of me understand how it's not, the shaft isn't sticking out far enough now. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I don't remember shortening the offsets of the motor. I'm just at a loss. This is so strange. So I thought this was ready to go, but apparently it's not. Going to have to offset that more. It's also got downright thrust, but it's got a ton of downright thrust. Okay, I think it's pretty much straight on. So that's quite a bit. So I have to dive into that next. I've been thinking more about the Sundowner and how I had the spinner on and had ran it up in my backyard, plus I went to fly it. And maybe I was able to do that because I left the cowling off. But if I would have gone to fly it, I thought it was completely ready, cowling on, balanced, everything good to go. So I don't think that would be the case. So I don't get it. I found some offsets that are about exactly what I need. Actually, maybe 1 millimeter, 2 millimeters longer than I need, but that's okay. So my plan is I've taken the motor off. One of the blind nuts, all the spikes were flat and it just sat there spinning from Loctite that I had put in. So that was a bear to get out. But vice grips and determination pulled the day. So my plan is to put the spacer before this engine mount or motor mount. So I'll end up adding the space this way. So that means I need to get shorter bolts. Probably going to have to cut some bolts because I'm going to have bolts going in both sides. I'm going to have a bolt coming through the firewall, and then I'm going to have a bolt going through here into the spacers. So that's the next step, getting the bolts in the right dimension. Bad news. This is the right length, but it is not the right bolt size. It has two different bolt sizes on it, which I didn't notice before. So I'm going to order the 6/32 spacer at whatever length this is, or the right length it needs to be at. And while I was pulling out my 6/32 to find short bolts that would fit, I also came across my Del City rubber grommets that I'm going to use to screw the 440 bolts through here. So I'm going to put the rubber grommets in there. So I put those in with my cowling bolts, so I'll remember to do that. All right, go order some spacers. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Dan from Dan's Planes. I just want to share some content about RC planes, something I've been passionate about since childhood. I'm hoping I can teach something to someone, I can start some discussion and learn some things from others. So let's just have some fun and learn some things together. If you enjoyed what you watched, it would really help me out if you could like, subscribe, and share. And if you feel that it helped you out in some way, or it might help future viewers, I'd really appreciate it if you'd visit my Patreon page and become a patron. It's like throwing a $1 tip into a guitar case when you pass by. It helps to fund future content and future projects that I'll be working on. I plan to show some past content. I have some other flights and I have some fly-in events that I've been to. And I also plan to show future flights and future repairs, as well as building ARFs, and if I can ever get back to it, building my top flight Spitfire. So there's a lot of content to come, but it's viewers like you that are able to support what I'm doing, and by doing that, I'm able to spend more time creating that content in the future. So I'd really appreciate it. But either way, thanks for watching, and thanks for any support, and I wish you blue skies and good speed.